Hi. Hey. Okay. I'll just wait a bit, but I am doing a lot of research into sunlight because it's very powerful, and because my book's on it, and because I'm a geek, and because I want more people, even us in the health community, to be getting more sunlight, natural sun, and I also find it easier for myself to maintain discipline when I know the mechanisms as a geek into why things work. So, with that being said, let's try and break down. I've been doing a lot of research today. Outside in the sun, reading a really cool book, Red Light Therapy by Ari Whitman, which I highly recommend people read. And other stuff too. Getting sunlight on my skin, which is really important. And I could go everywhere, all over the shop with what I say, but I don't know enough. I'm certain of what I say, but I'm still trying to figure shit out. So I'll just stick to speaking about one thing today, which is very simple and correct, I believe, from this book on red light therapy, plus the research I've done on Google as well, on the mechanisms, and I'll read it out a little bit. So, okay, to try and explain to you, there's UVC, UVB, UVA. This is for me too, by the way, guys. There's UVC light, UVB light, UVA light, then visible light, then near infrared, then medium infrared, then far infrared. And the shortest one is UVC, which gets blocked completely by the ozone. Then there's UVB and UVA, which are only 10% of the light, by the way. UVB and UVA, only 10%. But of that 10% from the UVB and UVA, 10% of that 10% is UVB, 90% is UVA. So as you go up from UVC to UVB, UVA, they go from the shortest, they go a bit higher. Then once you passed UVA, you go on to visible light, which is what we can see, which includes red light. And then you go past the visible spectrum of colour, of the red spectrum, the red light, and then you go into infrared light technology. That's what I want to talk to you a little bit about. Stick to one thing, huh? Got too much on my mind right now. So I want to talk to you about infrared and red light therapy and why it's so powerful, and also it's in sunlight. So we can, and I'm all for, by the way, I used to have one, gonna buy another one, gonna buy one for the whole body. I'm all for people buying red light devices. I will break down a little bit of the mechanisms for you, but you should also read this book and buy this book by Ari Whitman. It's very popular on Amazon. Now this book, when it came out last year, actually he puts all the mechanisms that he reckons, and I've read it, and I have connected the dots as well with the information he's presented, and I'm 100% connecting the dots as well with other people's information, and what he's written here, he's correct, Ari Whitman. So I highly recommend people buy this book. But this book was so popular last year, The Red Light Therapy by Ari Whitman, and he put the recommendations of what red light devices to buy. So he's got, I love the detail he's put in this book of like how the mechanisms behind red light therapy, but he also put what ones to buy. And it got so popular last year that they've sold out on a lot of these. They've actually sold out on the ones that he recommends. The Juve is hard to find. Though the smaller ones have sold out, certainly. The big ones, they cost like 500, 600. I recommend them. It's either that, or you go out and get sunlight and do nudism, or do like maybe with privates covered up, ladies and gentlemen. Maybe you can't do nudism, but you get your body. So you've got a choice if you're in the health community. You do not miss out, and I'll tell you why. We can't miss out on red and infrared light. Either we get it from a device, which is fine if we're inside all the time and we can't get outside sunlight, or as part of the health community, we just, even in cloud cover, we just choose to do as nude as possible, maybe with our privates covered up, and that's it. You have to do one or the other. But here is why, I'm going to read some stuff out, why the primary mechanism why red and infrared light spectrum, which is a very quick wave, remember, UVC, UVB, UVA, right at the bottom, very slow, and it speeds up. So from UVC, UVA, UVA, you've got visible light, red light being the top of the visible light, and then beyond the red light, visible, you've got the invisible near infrared, the medium infrared, and the far infrared. This is the near infrared. Shit, I just lost the page. Okay, right. This is kind of complicated to talk about. I'm still trying to figure shit out. Kind of not. Let me get to this. Right, it's not actually that complicated once you understand the mechanics. And I'll read it out. Okay, so mitochondria. Everybody knows that mitochondria, or should know, we should know that mitochondria are the powerhouse of the cells. We've got trillions of cells within our body, and they're powered by each cell, of which we've got trillions, has got like 3 to 10,000 mitochondria. The mitochondria are the powerhouse of the cell, and the mitochondria, in order to run efficiently, need to be free of free radicals, need to be free of nitric oxide, which I'll get to in a bit on why, and they need to have lots of oxygen in them to work properly. The mitochondria, of which they, if I did calculations, 3 to 10,000 in each cell, and there's trillions of cells in your body, the powerhouse, you can understand what I'm saying, needs oxygen. Now, what sunlight, the infrared red spectrum, the high end of sunlight provides is, by the way, Chris, I just seen your message there, hi bro, you're going to like this, because this is about biophotonic energy. Light provides biophotons, right? Biophotons. Now, what does that mean? What it means is the mitochondria and a specific enzyme, I think, inside the mitochondria called cytochrome C oxidase. There's a specific enzyme inside every single mitochondria that is required for maximal efficiency of the Krebs cycle and conversion of oxygen into energy for ATP. This cytochrome C oxidase inside every mitochondria is lit up by light. Light biophotons are needed and required. Sunlight or infrared light from a machine light up this this photoreceptor, because we are kind of like plants. People outside the health community will understand this. We have light receptors inside us. We have receptors that are sensitive to light and they're sensitive to light and they need light from biophotonic energy from the sun. We need that because without it we can't get the energy. And we have cytochrome C oxidase is a light receptor inside every mitochondria, which I've just told you there's billions of mitochondria, absolutely necessary. Not only that, there's light receptors in your muscle tissue and your heart muscle called myoglobin. There's also light receptors in your blood called hemoglobin. So light receptors are really important. Our body is kitted out to absorb light. There's a reason for it. It's not an evolutionary, it's not coincidence, it's designed for our health. So, with that being said, this enzyme, this light receptor inside your mitochondria called cytochrome C oxidase requires biophotonic energy from infrared red light. Actually requires all of them, but I'm talking about this specifically. Requires red and infrared light to activate it. Now, if it doesn't get activated and we don't get enough light, then there won't be a lot of oxygen inside the mitochondria. So the cytochrome C oxidase, it absorbs the light energy and converts it into oxygen and gives the oxygen to the mitochondria. We all know that mitochondria need oxygen in order to thrive. We need oxygen. And light energy hits the cytochrome C oxidase, and what it does is, not only does it give oxygen, it pushes out something which is not good that is inside the cytochrome C oxidase. Now, this book says it, and I believe this is to be true. I've done some research on it as well. So there is something in the cytochrome C oxidase when we don't get enough light and when we are unhealthy, right? If we don't get this infrared light from a machine or from sunlight enough on our skin, the more the better. If we don't get enough, what happens is the mitochondria and the cytochrome C oxidase is full up, instead of oxygen, it's full up with something called nitric oxide. Now, nitric oxide is not a bad thing. However, it's not good to have it inside the mitochondria. And the reason why is because it competes with the oxygen in the mitochondria. It competes with the oxygen for the mitochondria. We want oxygen in the mitochondria to thrive. I know this from aged urine. What does aged urine do? When I put it topically or drink it, it supplies to transition a little bit, aged urine supplies mitochondria of oxygen. So actually sunlight and aged urine are a perfect combo. To sidetrack, there is a competition. Unhealthy people, and even us when we fuck up on our stuff, we have too much nitric oxide in our mitochondria and in our cytochrome C oxidase, which stops oxygen from getting into the it stops oxygen from getting into the mitochondria. There's a competition between oxygen and nitric oxide. Now, when you get light, either from a machine, which is fine, I promote them, I think they're great. Don't be fooled in thinking, you know, do what you can, I think they're fucking amazing. Or you get the sunlight, that biophotonic energy hits the light receptor of the cytochrome C oxidase. That's what it's there for. It's a light receptor to receive the light, the energy. And then, at the moment that you receive the light, the infrared and red light, it pushes out the nitric oxide, which is not a waste product, but we don't want the nitric oxide inside the mitochondria. Now, this gets crazy because there's two things here. I connect the dots from this and my own thinking and my own research today. So this is kind of true. It's very true. But there's something he missed off here, which is really important as well. This is all going to go in my book, by the way. It's going to be a fucking awesome book if I do this right. I'm intimidated at the scope of what I'm covering and learning. It's fucking crazy. I don't think there's ever going to be a book quite like it that's combined all the elements of the research up to date on exactly why all these things are working. Okay, so the biophotonic light energy, this is really important to hit your skin. The cytochrome C oxidase enzyme in the mitochondria absorbs the light as food. It's food. Therefore, oxygen is now allowed into the mitochondria in high amounts. Okay, high oxygen. So light energy from infrared light gives you high oxygen into the mitochondria via the photoreceptor cytochrome C oxidase. Now your mitochondria are abundant in oxygen. Same as when you do aged urine, by the way. Same when you do grounding. A little bit different mechanism, but kind of the same thing. Now your mitochondria are full of oxygen. Therefore, your mitochondria, and the mitochondria are the powerhouse of everything, bearing in mind how many millions and trillions of cells there are and how many mitochondria within each cell. Holy shit. The mitochondria has been amplified. You could argue, at one layer of looking at it, don't be dogmatic with this, mitochondrial health is everything in this game. Everything in this game. Based on the fact it's the powerhouse of the cell, it supplies energy, there's so many of them. People talk about it like there's that Dave Asprey guy. I think he's very right. Mitochondrial health is everything. And light from infrared light lights up the mitochondria based on that mechanism. It provides oxygen. That's one. This book is brilliant on that. Actually, I will read out a little bit to supplement that before I add in a little bit of my own stuff. Right. Wait 1 second. Okay, the mitochondria are the batteries that fuel all the processes of our organs. Thus, things which enhance the mitochondria translate into more cellular energy inside the cell, which allows the cell or organ to work optimally. There's some good shit here. Right. Lack of red light and infrared light impacts every organ and tissue in our bodies because every cell in our organs, tissue, skins, heart, liver, lungs all contain mitochondria. This gives our heart energy to beat, all this stuff, right? One more thing. 1 second. There's some really good shit. Right, here we go. The reason why red light and infrared light is because the health of every organ, every cell in the body depends on the energy being produced by the mitochondria. The whole body is dependent on the amount of energy provided by the mitochondria. That energy comes from this enzyme called catalyzed C oxidase, or whatever I said, and the light activates oxygen into the mitochondria, which displaces the nitric oxide, right? And what this book doesn't say is nitric oxide. I've done a lot of research on that. So we've got two factors going on. We've got a massive amount of oxygen, which is energy for the mitochondria, absolute bliss, activated by light, by photons, which is fucking crazy when you think about it. And also, like I said, the not waste product, but the pushing out of nitric oxide from the mitochondria is absolutely key because they compete with the oxygen. There's a fight going on. Unhealthy people have too much nitric oxide in their mitochondria for a reason, because they have such low oxygen in their bodies that the oxygen has to go to other places. The body is so smart, it has to put the oxygen in other places. So it keeps the nitric oxide in the cell, in the mitochondria. You do not want nitric oxide in the mitochondria. Now, here's something amazing that happens. And I finally figured out 100% why deep breathing occurs with sunlight. I know why. At least with sunlight. I'm still going to figure out in my head why it occurs with grounding and aged urine, although it kind of know, but I know 100% with sunlight now why it does. What's going on when you deep breathe in, even just in cloud cover sun? It's all about nitric oxide. All. Pretty much. This is the focus you should think of it. Nitric oxide, discovered in 1998. Some guys won the Nobel Prize for Medicine in 98 for discovering nitric oxide is a vasodilator, and it's a really important chemical for cardiovascular health. It relaxes the blood vessels. It makes you deep breathe. Well, look what I just said. When biophotons hit the cytochrome C oxidase inside every single mitochondria of your body, it displaces the nitric oxide. Now, the nitric oxide gets pushed out, and it's not a waste product, it's magic medicine, nitric oxide, but now the nitric oxide gets activated where it needs to be done, which is in the bloodstream. So, from every cell and mitochondria of your body, when you get the energy, the oxygen coming into mitochondria, it pushes out the nitric oxide, so you've got the double whammy. You've got the energy and oxygen from mitochondria, awesome, but now you've got a flooding, and I mean a flooding, in an instant too, a flooding of nitric oxide straight into the bloodstream from the cells. And that's vasodilation, that's cardiovascular health, that's immune system, increases the amount of T cells. There's a lot of shit going on, but that is, I assure you, the primary mechanism why deep breathing happens in sunlight. But it goes even deeper than that, because it is nitric oxide, but if you want to get super geeky, it's not just, get this is crazy. Think about this. Every single cell with the sunlight is getting, the nitric oxide getting pushed out into the bloodstream. So that's a lot of nitric oxide getting pushed out into your bloodstream, right? From your cell, from your cytochrome C oxidase mitochondria. But also, your skin has nitrite, nitrate, and nitric oxide, which is activated as soon as the sun hits it. Now, it might be, as this guy says, the red light, but I know for a fact, red light, the wavelength, but it's also, I've done some research today, it's also UVA, which is invisible. UVA being just below visible light, just below. UVA light, which you can't see, activates the nitrite, nitrate, and nitric oxide in your skin. And when I say activates, what I mean is it pushes it from the skin into the bloodstream. So now you've got, this is crazy. This is why I think sunlight is more powerful than infrared light, because the red light from a machine will give you nitric oxide blood from cytochrome from the mitochondria, and also a little bit from the skin, but UVA is primarily the way that nitric oxide gets from the skin, which is not in a red light machine, is it? That's why sunlight is more powerful. So we've got two things, and it's gonna go deeper. There's more nitric oxide than what I'm saying. You've got mitochondria, nitric oxide from every single mitochondria getting pushed into the bloodstream. That's fucking crazy. That's one deep breathing. Holy shit, that's crazy. And you'll feel it in an instant. This is why, especially if you're unhealthy and you've not been looking after your health, and you shallow breathe and then you go outside, the difference will be so shocking to you, deep breathing. We might not notice this, by the way, and sometimes I don't notice it because I do breath work, you see, inside. I do breath work, so my breathing is already deep. But rest assured, nitric oxide is being pushed out into the blood vessels exactly where it needs. There's one, the mitochondria push it into the bloodstream from red light, infrared light. Two, red light also hits the skin and pushes it, hits the skin and pushes that nitric oxide in the bloodstream. Also UVA light, which is invisible. That's why sunlight is more powerful. Three, hemoglobin, your blood, is also a photoreceptor, a receptacle of light, just as your mitochondria and the cytochrome C oxidase is. There's more than one light receptor in your body. Your body's a fucking crazy miracle machine. So your hemoglobin does the same thing. Just getting confused here a little bit. Your hemoglobin, on activation from light frequencies, it might not be red light though. It's the sunlight. It's all kinds of light. This topic gets really confusing. I'm not saying now it's red light that does this. Just notice sunlight, some different wavelengths. There's a wavelength of light, don't think it is red light by the way, that makes the hemoglobin release its nitric oxide into the and then there's the myoglobin, which is very similar to, it's a muscle one. So there's a lot to it, and whilst I'm talking this, I'm getting a bit muddled up in my head too, if I'm being honest, because it's so complicated, this subject. I'm trying to figure it out in my head. There's clearly a lot more work I need to do, and there's something else that I haven't gone too deep with. That when the light receptors hit the red blood cells, it increases oxygen transference from the blood into your tissues. Okay, this is a key thing. Everyone more or less has the same saturation of oxygen within their blood system. Everyone does. You can prove it. You can go get a pulse oximeter, and people have 98, 98, 95 to 99%. It doesn't mean they're healthy. Doesn't mean they're healthy. Everyone has the same amount of oxygen in their blood. Doesn't mean you're healthy. Now the problem is getting the oxygen from your blood into the tissues. That's the problem. And what light does, whichever frequency, whether it be red light or one of these, I haven't done the research on which one, it helps and aids the hemoglobin, activates the hemoglobin to push more oxygen into the tissues, muscles, cells, and wherever it needs to go. That's a fact. It really does. And that's crazy to think. And then there's the myoglobin, which is a muscle. It's another light receptor. And myoglobin is your heart muscle and your skeletal muscles. Myoglobin, right? And that's a light receptor too. And that does the same thing. Oh, I'm talking and thinking at the same time. It also does the same thing as mitochondria, the myoglobin. So the myoglobin has nitric oxide inside it, and so does the hemoglobin. And they only get pushed out when they are supplied with oxygen, which the light provides. So, light and infrared for every cell, a mitochondria, for every cell, mitochondria, red infrared light pushes the nitric oxide out and supplies mitochondria with oxygen. So that's a lot of nitric oxide into the bloodstream. The skin does the same thing via UVA light and red light. So the skin has an abundance of nitric oxide, nitrates and nitrates, which are converted into nitric oxide. Then you've got the hemoglobin pushing out, the blood pushing out nitric oxide. And then you've got the myoglobin, which is the skeletal muscles, the muscles of the body, and the heart muscles. Think of that. And that is how deep breathing happens. Even if you've got all your clothes on and just your eyes and your face are exposed, just your eyes and your face are exposed to sunlight, you are getting a massive dump of nitric oxide into your bloodstream, which apparently doesn't last very long. Apparently it lasts only like once. It's got a half-life for a second or two, but you feel the deep breathing and as soon as you go out in the sunlight. And another thing, this is the key to lowering blood pressure and for people with diabetes and all these kind of problems, because this is why blood pressure is lowered. They do studies all the time. Why does the blood pressure get lowered by sunlight? The factor is nitric oxide. You've got like 4 different ways that we know about of nitric oxide being dumped into the bloodstream from each individual cell of mitochondria, from the skin, from the muscle, skeletal cells, the heart muscle, and from the red blood cells. So there's a lot of nitric oxide going on there, and you do not want the nitric oxide inside the hemoglobin, myoglobin, and the cells and the mitochondria. You do not want it there, but it will do that. It will stay there in unhealthy people, but you do not want it there. You want it in the bloodstream. That's how we get cardiovascular health. How do you protect yourself from heart attacks? Just go and stand in the sun for 10 hours. Do nothing. Spend 5 hours in the sun every day. I guarantee you won't get a heart attack, because you're just dumping your body with, even with your clothes on. But imagine if you had like hardly any clothes on, just your privates covered, a few hours, and you're dumping so much nitric oxide in your body, it'd be impossible for heart attack, plaques, and a lack of oxygen, isn't it? Heart attack's just a lack of oxygen. And these biophotons are giving your mitochondria oxygen, because we have light receptors inside us. We're like plants, you know. Yo, Chris, man, appreciate that. You talk about this too, like we are like plants. We are like we don't need a lot, and we convert energy from sun into real nutrition for the body, This is the mechanism. I highly recommend you guys read this book, Red Light Therapy. And also, when I get my book done, and I still haven't got everything simulated in my brain, I assure you it will be a fucking good book on not just this, but a lot of other factors of sunlight that are powerful. I'm working through the benefits of UVB, the benefits of, I haven't talked about here, the benefits of UVA, red light, infrared. Yep, I've talked a little bit about this, but there's a lot more that I still haven't figured out yet. I haven't connected dots on. I'm going to complete. I just never seen a book have it all in there with all the up-to-date studies and all the things. Because every couple of years we find new things with the sunlight that what's going on. You know, another thing that someone posted that is really important information: the blue light, the visible blue light of sunlight when it hits your skin. Now it doesn't penetrate very deep because it's a very short wavelength blue light, but it reduces the fat, the subcutaneous fat contained under the skin. You know, the fat that we don't want, that makes people fat. Yeah, well, when the blue light hits it, it reduces the size, it pushes it into the bloodstream for elimination. The fat, the subcutaneous fat under the skin doesn't penetrate very big blue light, but doesn't need to. So in other words, one of the huge mechanisms, fucking huge, why people lose weight when they go to the beach and they're getting a lot of sun on their naked body, or even just covered up body, whatever. It's because the blue light, the blue visible light, reduces the fat from your body. How amazing is that? Sunlight is so fucking powerful, and I'm so grateful that I understand the mechanism. I'm a geek, man. Today was 5 hours non-stop of like researching. It's gonna be way more than this. So I'm getting carried away with myself. I took on too much with the scope of this thing I made you, I think, because I missed off some information. I try my best, but the book anyway, I'm intimidated because there's a lot of information that's going to go into it, and I'm pretty sure by the time I get it done in the next couple of months, I'm not going to have everything down. My observations in science, but it doesn't need to be perfect, because quite frankly, there's going to be no book on sunlight, quite apart from this book, which I fucking love, by the way, and this is only one type of light, too. Probably the most powerful, if we're going to be biased, red light therapy is fucking powerful. Highly recommend you buy Ari Whitman's Red Light Therapy book. I'm trying to simulate knowledge into my own, but a lot of other stuff too. Also, do not be afraid of red light machines. You know, if you're inside, you have to be inside all the time. Buy them. Buy the Juve. Juve is the one they recommend. They sell out so quickly. They're expensive though, but these things are hacks when we have to be inside and we're not going to be naked, or we're not going to go outside. I don't think it's enough to say that your face is exposed to sunlight these days and that's it. At least your chest, at least your legs and your arms. It's just not enough, I'm afraid, to... You do can, but it's not enough just to have your face. And especially don't do what I'm doing right now when it comes to sunlight outside. I'm only doing this because I wear the blue blockers and stuff for the artificial lights at night time. Don't wear hats outside too. So, yes, man. Appreciate the love, everybody. Yes, we are light beings indeed. It's very special, and I'm very honoured to be studying the power of sunlight, you know. And I fucked up this. Interested and curious about the power of the sun, you know. However we do it, some people can go in the sun and not know the mechanisms and not be a geek, but I'm not one of those people. I need to know the mechanisms behind why something works, and it's not even from an ego perspective. It's because I just want to help people in my life with these therapies, and I want to know specifically what colours of light I can use, what colours are going to do certain things with protocols for when I get to the point of helping people. I need to know this for myself too, as I experiment with a vessel. It's very powerful. And the cloud cover is no excuse. Absolutely no excuse. No excuse. And the cold ain't too. You can go to the cold and expose yourself, because the cold is a magic medicine too. So you can do two things in one in the UK or any cold place. You can go out for 20 minutes. If you don't want to do it too long because it's too cold, do 20 minutes outside in the cold. Do cold therapy and sunlight. Boom, boom. There's the magic of nature. You don't have to just be in the tropics with the heat and think, oh, I'm healing myself magically. You probably are doing amazing things because it's nice and hot and easy. But in the UK and cold in areas wherever we are, in Canada and stuff, we can do two things. We can use nature to our advantage. We can do sunlight and cold therapy, because the power of the sun does not come from its heat. That's another thing I learned a while back. The power of the sun does not come from its heat. It comes from its light. Although the heat helps with the sweating, don't get me wrong, but the real power of the sun is not to do with the heat. The real power of the sun is to do with its light. So you can do even under a cloud cover, UK cold, you can still receive that light and get some cold therapy going at the same time. Yes. Cheers, John, mate. I tried my best. I went all over the place in this one. Really did. But I'll tell you what, the stuff I'm learning is absolutely fascinating. And if my book doesn't motivate people to get into sunlight, I don't know what will. All I care about the marker for it is that I do a good job, and it motivates me, and I look back at it and relearn and keep reading it myself, so I remind myself of what I know on sunlight. That's why I'm doing it primarily. But it's a shame in this day and age. There's not enough books and information like this one. Fine, these are coming out now, but you know, there's no information that's collating all this knowledge, and it's fabulous if you look into the history of sunlight. Oh god, and the UVB light and its ability to kill bacteria of all kinds. Cholera, you put UVB, just sunlight, in a cholera water for 1 hour, sunlight will kill it completely. All of these diseases, man, all of these are bacteria infections. Cholera, tuberculosis, oh man, they can go on forever about how powerful the sun is. You know, it's magic. It's magic, and we are liable to take it for granted because it's always there. And I was thinking this today when I was out there. We take for granted what is always there. Even if it's under cloud cover, it just comes up, lights up the day for 15 hours, and then it goes down for 10 hours. And we are liable to take it for granted because it's always there. But you can't take it for granted because it's medicine, and it's the reason why people get ill, and it's going to protect you for as long as it comes up, and it will always be up there. It's our protection. So we have to understand that it's powerful and why we're doing these things that we're doing on it, and all these things. All right, so yes, highly recommend. If you guys have got infrared light technology, well done. Get the Juve. I can't remember the other ones. There's the Red Light Man in the UK, does some others. There's this 2 or 3. Juve is the one though. Juve is £500. Well done. Just get outside in the light and remember to expose your skin, and yeah, just get out and get some sun. And I hadn't even started on sun gazing. Sunlight. We're talking about sunlight. Very powerful, isn't it? Cheers, Pixie. You're doing a good job too. We've got to go out into whatever weather. We just got no excuse. The sun always rises. Under cloud cover, under chemtrails, it's always there for us. And we can't forget this, and we've got to commit, like myself, I've got to commit to more hours in the sun, because more hours in the sun equals more healing time, equals, you know, the way that we were supposed to live. You know, we can make all kinds of excuses. Oh, it's too cold outside to take my clothes off. Yeah, or it's chemtrails, it's cloud cover. There's all kinds of excuses, and I have them too, by the way. I have loads of excuses, but I'm stepping up. I did it a lot last year, and then I went off it the last couple of months, and now I'm back on it with the book as well. The book's motivating me to get out in the sun more and experience the difference it makes. And rest assured, the factor of red light, infrared light gives you a lot more energy. I'm noticing that. I'm getting, because of my mitochondria and the oxygen, the function is going up. You know, I was pretty much, if I'm being honest, naked today because of my Kaneki shorts, which let most of the light in. So it doesn't look like I'm naked, but even my ball sack is fucking naked because it lets most of the light in. By the way, if you don't know about Kaneki shorts, Google Kaneki shorts. You can buy very cheap, see-through. You can't see through them, but they let the light in. Very important. But I exposed my body for a couple of hours today, and I felt great and amazing. I can tell the quality of difference. I used to do it a lot in my room, nudism, and now in the privacy of my room with the window open. Then I stopped doing it, and now I'm back on it again. I'm experiencing the benefits. And it's perfect timing for the book as well, so I can practice what I preach and won't be a hypocrite, which is awesome. Alright, so, again, Red Light Therapy by Ari Whitman. Start looking into getting yourself out in the sunlight more, and red light devices like the Juve and the Red Rouge. There we go, I remembered it. Red Light, Juve is the best one, I think. So, alright, thanks for watching, people, and happy night and happy day. And stay healthy. Peace.